All right, so picking up where we left off, we're on number 4
Correct. So
of
you
the pillars.
To recap the last 3?
Yeah, because it's been a while since we put those out. So,
Yeah.
okay, so number 1.
So 10 pillars of health. So the last video we talked about number 1, eliminate sugar and processed carbs, importance of that, the health benefits. Number 2 is getting rid of vegetable oils. They're in all processed foods and why they're unhealthy for us. I think those are probably the top 2 things that are causing us.
Or what we call low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
The biggest impact on your health.
I personally, I think it's what cleaned up my inflammation and my insulin resistance is by these 2 things.
Yeah. Now, I think we covered it in the last one, but how difficult that can be without knowing what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reading labels and understanding that every restaurant cooks in these things, and so you got to eat at home. Third thing is, well sourced, regeneratively grown fruits and vegetables and meats, and why they're more important. They're more nutrient dense, soil health, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, which leads us to number 4.
Number four is gut health.
Gut health, man. I was just listening to that book, the Mark Hyman, Forever Young.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
And
great book if anyone wants to have a new book to read.
Yeah, so I'm doing it on Audible, but it's got to that point where you're like, I need the book, because I know there's like charts and graphs and stuff, but he has 2 sections on gut health, because I think if he were here right now, he would put gut health at number 1.
Yeah.
And so let's kind of get into gut health, because I think as doctors, up until about 5 years ago, we heard things like leaky gut syndrome.
But we were told that was was a farce.
Yeah, like what is that?
Really wasn't anything.
Well, I think the bad side of it is it gets swept under so many different labels, like irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. You're just crazy. Things of that nature. But I'd say over the last 5 years, and I'm pretty sure that's what you're getting into, that just the research on what happens to our gut, and unfortunately we're going to short people in this section because I don't know, maybe all the different bacteria that need to be supported and how to support them, but all that to say, we need to pay more attention to it.
Yeah. So I think some things that I've learned over the years, just like you said, this is probably one of the more advancing parts of medicine. For example, 70% of our neurotransmitters, so our brain hormones like serotonin that affect depression, anxiety, those are secreted by the gut microbiome. And so our gut...
Tell people what microbiome is.
So this is cool. So basically, in our small intestine and large intestine, we have bacteria and also we have fungi that live there. And it's a symbiotic relationship. What ends up happening when we eat stuff, yes, we have enzymes and things like that can break down our food, but we really rely on those bacteria and fungi to break down the nutrients in the food where we can absorb it. And along that, when they're doing that, they also make some vitamins and release minerals. So it's a really good relationship. So it's very important to have a healthy set of bacteria in there. And there's trillions of these bacteria. And so through what we eat, we either create we support the good gut bugs, I'm going to call it gut bugs, or we support the bad gut bugs. Mm-hmm. So it's finding that balance in there. And if we are not giving our gut bugs the proper food, because they need food.
And stress management and sleep.
All that stuff, then probably what ends up happening is you then get a breakdown of that gut lining and then inflammation from that leaky gut that affects everything in your body. It affects, it has ties to type 2 diabetes, has ties to Alzheimer's. It has
I think you say everything.
ties to heart problems, and then depression, anxiety. And so if you can, number one, give these gut bugs the right materials, which we're going to talk about that, or food, and avoid toxins that break down that gut lining, that can heal your gut and therefore start reversing some of these diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that I thought is pretty cool, and this is just, I think how, I like how God and nature kind of, there's some common threads.
Yeah.
So we go back to growing plants. And
I was going to bring that up. You read my mind.
do it. So run with that one.
I just find it amazing, now that we know a lot more about farming. You may have already known this, but the whole purpose of regenerative farming is to create the normal, the way it's supposed to be done, relationship between bacteria and fungus in the plant. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the way we farm now, you got really bad soil. Once a year, you go throw some, you comment here, nitrogen. What else are you throwing on that dirt? Roundup.
Toxins.
But as far as things that the plant needs.
Yeah. Oh, the things. So the big thing is it needs residual material from last year to feed the soil microbiome.
Yeah.
Where it can break down all that stuff and recycle those nutrients.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is plants depend on bacteria and fungus in the soil to be able to appropriately absorb the nutrients that are in the soil.
Correct.
Right.
Just like us.
Just like our gut.
Just like us.
Yeah. If we don't have the right bacteria, fungus, if we don't have that right balance, we don't grow good humans. Yep. So we don't grow great crops when this is out of balance. We don't grow great humans when this is out of balance. So the revolution in farming right now is to say, hey, we've got to take care of the soil and support a good environment for bacteria and fungus that break down those nutrients and allow it to incorporate into the plant, which then the animal eats, the cycle of life. So now we're starting to understand that that's the same thing in your gut.
Absolutely.
Right?
No, that's exactly.
Is that what you were thinking?
That's exactly, and that's so cool.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the same principles with soil health, getting rid of the Roundup, the toxins, the things that kill all the good microbes in the soil. Same thing in us. For example, Roundup. We talked about organic foods. So if we're eating foods that have a lot of Roundup, glyphosate on it, it's a antibiotic actually, and it goes in and kills a lot of the good gut bugs. And then also, it's been shown that the tight junctions we have a lining in our gut of cells that actually Roundup breaks down those tight junctions and causes leaky gut. Yeah. Along with a lot of other things.
Yeah. I think you alluded to it earlier, but bigger pieces of food. Food's a rough word because it's not really food at that point of your gut. It's chyme or it's liquid. But you have these big molecules that need to be broken down further, so they get through the gut intestinal lining into your veins, which then carry it to your liver. But these bigger molecules get across without being appropriately broken down, but they're too big to go across the capillary. They're too large to get into the bloodstream. So they just hang out in your gut, causing all kinds of inflammation and wreaking havoc, killing your immune system, throwing off all these hormones. So I think we beat that up now. How do we fix it?
So here's one thing I think, personally myself, I've been kind of playing around with this the past few years. And so, first of all, eliminating the things that are harmful to our gut bugs. So the things that we've talked about, we know data shows this. Number one, sugar is very harmful. Processed. Number two, vegetable oils actually cause a lot of inflammation in our gut. Therefore, it harms our gut bugs.
I can tell you every time I eat bad oils, because I'm going immediately to the bathroom.
You got to run. You tell me about that every time you go eat some bad Chinese food.
I know where it's going to be, and I know I shouldn't eat it, and it's that subtle, immediate feedback that says, "Don't go back and eat that again."
Isn't it interesting how your body's telling you things?
Oh yeah.
We just learn to listen to it.
Yeah, but I probably didn't experience that until I cleaned my diet up. Yeah. Once you clean it up and things go back to normal, or what should be considered normal. So like if you clean your diet up, you heal everything. When you throw an insult at it, it will reject it, right? So I don't imagine everybody has the issue that I have every time I eat a steak out and it's been cooked in vegetable oil. I mean, I have immediate GI distress. I don't think everybody experiences that. It's just once you clean it up and get it reset back to normal, your body's pretty resilient. It's like, that's toxic, get it out of here. So if I was to throw it all the way in and eat, Wendy's and McDonald's every day and get those bad bacteria back, it probably wouldn't bother. That's the downside of this. It's conditioning, right?
You think bad or feeling bad just becomes your new normal?
Yeah, bad begots bad, right?
No, I think that's. I think that's something I've learned over the years. By cleaning up things, you all of a sudden your energy's back, you feel better, and you didn't realize how bad you really were feeling until you feel good. The other thing is switching to organic things as much as possible, getting rid of the Roundup that's in a lot of our foods. There was a study that shows it was a family. They followed a family. They were eating just conventional foods at the grocery store. They switched to organic, and the Roundup or glyphosate in their urine went down 70%.
But same study, how long did it take to completely go away?
They saw a change within 5 days. It was pretty quick how things changed.
But if I remember right, it took like weeks to months to completely eliminate it. Because that stuff gets incorporated into your mitochondria. It gets incorporated into your genetics.
The other thing I was going to say is how to heal your gut is fiber.
So we did a whole podcast on fiber, and it's easy to say fiber, but actually explaining fiber and insoluble versus soluble. And I think you came in at the end of that podcast.
Yeah, I didn't get a comment a ton on that.
Yeah. Well, do you have any wisdom to impart?
So here's so back in the day, let's go back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors. They were eating up to 150 grams of fiber, which I'd love to show what that looks like. That's probably, if you were to do Metamucil, it'd probably be a whole deal of this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Typical Americans are getting 15 to 25. The recommendation's 25 or greater.
Which is probably too low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think how do you get fiber in your diet?
Well, I'll comment on that in a second. I think the confusing part about fiber is it's a carbohydrate, right? And that's where the whole not knowing what a carbohydrate is gets really confusing, because you read these diets like, oh, low carb. Well, I mean, that's really meaning cut the processed and manufactured sugar out of your life, sugar being a carbohydrate. So people get really confused, and you're like, you need to eliminate carbs from your diet. Oh, but get enough fiber, right? And then, before I get to how I do it, the two other things that I want to say is, like, the American way is to supplement it, right? So you mentioned Metamucil. Like, oh, I don't get enough fiber, I'm going to throw some Metamucil. Well, that's like a bastardized version of fiber. And if you're not doing anything, yes, it's better than nothing, but is it the best thing? No. And the other way people try to combat the gut bacteria thing is to take probiotics. I mean, it's probably $1 billion to $1 trillion industry now. And I've been meaning to have podcast guests is to bring Matt on and have him
talk about that.
To have a microbiologist really talk to us about gut bacteria. That's his field of study in cows. But I think it applies, right? Maybe not. They're ruminants. Who cares? I don't know. I think it'd be good. But anyways, I try to get all my fiber from vegetables. So, every meal, everything's going to have fresh, green leafy vegetables or roasted. The problem with like boiling and what's the other way of steaming?
Yeah,
is you denature a lot of the fiber, so you're not getting the benefit. I'd probably get most of my fiber through, raw vegetables, I guess is what I'd say.
So it's on an ideal day for me, if I was to kind of focus on that. In the morning, I start off every morning with this, and I don't necessarily tell patients to do this because not very many people would want to, but I do a
Anchovy spinach
well,
shake?
it's interesting. So I take I do athletic greens, which you can order online. Basically, it's a ton of just fiber, ground up plant, and then I have this chia seed, flaxseed, coconut mixture that I mix up in water and I drink it. So
Who makes that?
I actually get it at Natural Grocers. It's basically it's in the refrigerated section.
But it's all those things in one scoop?
Correct. And so it's basically what I start off my day with is a lot of water and feeding my gut microbiome. That's the only reason I take all that. So that's one. Number two, if I do breakfast that morning, if I do like eggs, I'll do some red onions, some spinach, some garlic cloves, bell peppers, and so I try to. That's part of my eggs. So feeding that gut microbiome.
So you do both those?
Correct.
You do the shake and eggs?
If I eat breakfast that morning.
Okay. How many days a week you do that? 3, 4?
So I do breakfast 3 to 4.
Okay. And then intermittently fast the others?
Correct.
What do you feel best with?
But alternating.
Alternating?
I kind of listen. It's based off routine. The days that I operate, I fast. The days that I'm home in the morning, I cook.
Yeah. My philosophy is if I'm home in the morning with the kids, I eat breakfast. If I'm out of the house before, I fast.
My ideal lunch would be a salad with some kind of pasture-raised, regionally grown meat. And then I do a bed of spinach, red onion, bell peppers, walnuts, blackberries, blueberries, olive oil, balsamic. That's what I do.
Pretty good. Salt?
Salt.
Yeah. Not that shaker salt though, like the good salt. Yeah.
And then dinner would be some kind of regionally grown meat and 2 vegetables, kale, broccoli, asparagus. Now that's my ideal. That's my ideal world.
80% of the time.
Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
But the
when you
intention
get pizza, do you put some Metamucil on top?
No. And here's what I'll say. It's interesting. Let's talk about bowel movements. Okay? Every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm like clockwork. Unless I start eating high processed carbs, sugar, vegetables, I go a day or two and I'm constipated. It's weird.
Same way. Yeah.
So it goes
Same
to
way
show
here. Yeah. You know how we're over 40?
that.
We're talking about our bowel movements.
But you know what's interesting? I think it's basically when I'm doing that, I'm feeding that gut microbiome. They're expanding their population. That's what a bowel movement really is. It's actually a lot of waste material, but it's a lot of broken down, recycled bacteria. And so they're growing. That means you're kind of giving them life. And so I think you have to be intentional about gut health. And I think it's to, kind of, we can transition on. This is where a lot of diseases either are reversed or the fuel is drained.
I think the take home here is you can't heal the issue we're talking about by taking a probiotic. You've got to change what you eat. The biggest change I made in my diet was eliminating, because your healthy gut bacteria, and I'm sorry we don't know the specific names of all the healthy ones, they need short chain fatty acids and medium chain fatty acids to survive. So I eliminated all the processed oils, and then I added healthy fats back in, right? So my coffee in the morning, I'm putting MCT powder in, medium chain triglycerides, and that's I started doing that when I was experimenting with keto for that sustained energy in the morning, so priming the pump with fats. But then I noticed that it improved my gut health more than it did my effort for ketosis.
Because those bacteria love those medium chain triglycerides.
Yeah, medium chain, short chain fatty acids. So that was the one maneuver I made. And you're doing the same thing because you're adding that in the form. Medium MCT powder is nothing but ground up coconut, the meat of coconut, not the water. Water's got more sugar in it, but the meat is mostly fats, which is odd. How many fruits and vegetables out there are primarily fat? Not many.
Not very many.
Yeah.
Avocado.
Taking coconut. Yeah, coconut and avocado. Yeah.
Um, you just said something I wanted to elaborate on. Inflammation. So in the gut, or one thing Mark Hyman always comments on is about 70% or more of our inflammation comes from our gut.
Yeah.
In our body. And so I know, you look at a lot of the rheumatoid arthritis, a lot of the autoimmune diseases. It would be interesting to know how much of that is related to an unhealthy gut. And
I'm not a betting man. Just kidding. But I'd be willing to say over 80%.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of people look at like, my mom had RA or rheumatoid arthritis, so I'm just genetically, I'm going to get it. Well, that's your genetics, but I don't know if we're going to get as deep as epigenome and environmental and nutritional motivators or demotivators in the expression of genetics. So that's what would be epigenetics. But I think that's the gut inflammation triggers your body, your genetics to be like, oh, let's make these sick things happen. So harder to prove.
One other thing I put a note is adding fermented foods.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And why?
So what are fermented foods and why is that important?
Well, per my 4-year-old son, pickles.
Pickles?
Pickles. Yeah. And pickled carrots. And he's the only kid I know that freely eats kimchi and sauerkraut.
At 4 years old.
At 4 years old.
That's awesome.
I mean, and like, he eats so much of it, I almost get concerned he's got a deficiency of some sort because he craves it. Like, a snack for him isn't a piece of candy. It's like, can I have pickled stuff? And so, I mean, either he's really cool or something's really wrong. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet.
So the benefit, or the way I understand this, and you correct me, but basically you take cabbage. Let's take sauerkraut.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You take cabbage and you put it in a jar along with some water and some salt.
Vinegar.
And the bacteria go to work and they basically break down some of the natural sugars in there and turn it to acid, which ultimately causes it to kind of cure it.
Right.
Okay. But there's those beneficial microbes in there.
Right.
And they've released a lot of the nutrients in that cabbage that we can't release through the fermentation process.
Right.
So therefore, when you give your gut this cabbage, it's just therapeutic.
Yeah, I've always thought the benefit of pickled, either like, kimchi, sauerkraut, anything pickled with natural ingredients. That's the problem. Is, a lot of pickled stuff, it's got some pretty bad stuff in there too. But if you do it at your home, you just put vinegar and all the good stuff in there. The benefit is you're getting a good dose of the right bacteria, but you're having freely accessible fiber. Yeah. Because if you eat a raw carrot, which is high in fiber, right? But you're getting a lot of the starches with it. Your body has to work really hard to get that fiber out. And this is not a plug for Metamucil by any means. But the benefit of fermented foods or pickled, I guess fermented and pickled will be two different things. Let's be clear on that. Because fermented's been the reaction's been allowed to happen. It's whereas pickled, it's kind of just been preserved in process, But you eat like kimchi or you eat sauerkraut, and it's immediately available fiber. Your body has to do very little work to get that fiber, and it comes along with all the things that are going to do the work for you. So that's that's my thoughts on, and it releases a lot of the micronutrients and vitamins and everything that's already in the plant.
Another one I forgot about is yogurt without sugar.
Mm-hmm.
That's another.
So Greek, natural, full fat.
Yeah.
Yogurts. Yeah.
I do that more than probably some fermented foods. I need to add more fermented foods.
Oh man, it's funny. It's like you'll buy a bottle, go through it in 2 days. You're like, I'm going to add that, and then the next time you go to the grocery store, you don't buy it, and then the routine's gone. We keep a healthy supply of fermented and pickled foods at our house, mainly because kids, but and my wife loves this stuff too. I do as well. But I'd say 50% of our vegetable garden every year goes to pickling and fermenting of foods. So it takes very little effort. We all know this. Your grandparents may have been the same way. What was one thing they had with every meal?
My grandmother had a whole basement full of pickled everything in her garden. I mean,
Yeah.
we'd go down there, dark basement, and get pickles or stewed tomatoes.
Oh, yeah.
or
Green beans,
everything.
okra,
And
yeah.
she had it.
Beets.
Sauerkraut. She made her
Yeah.
own sauerkraut. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. But so one thing my grandparents always had, remember the old Crockett butter? Remember the brown
Yeah.
tubs?
Yeah.
So they'd save those, which we won't talk about microplastics and how harmful those are. But they would cut onions, cucumbers, and tomatoes up in there and just drench it with vinegar and olive oil. And it would just sit room temperature. I mean, I don't. Back then, I thought it was nasty.
And
but
cure.
Yeah. But you think about it now. I mean, they were prepping their guts.
Yeah.
You know, because my grandpa would eat that before every meal, and so kind of in place of a salad. That was their version of a salad, basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, we've lost a lot of those cultural things.
Yeah, that through the years we refined as being good for us, and then easy food became primary.
Yeah. Now it's yeast rolls.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah, you got yeast in it.
All right, are we going to move on?
Okay, yeah, we beat that one up.
Yeah.